Welcome into this carrier update. And Donnie, going to start out, obviously it's Monday, got to talk about what's going on in the reefer market, and it finally happened. We talked about, would we see it break below that 3%, reefer rejection rates dip below that 3%? Well, they did, and volumes have come down now to close out the month. I mean, it kind of ended on a sour note, if you will.
Yeah, but I think April, we typically finish volumes less than what we begin the month with. So we see here, yes, volumes from start to this being yesterday, being the actual last day of the month, yes, is down. But what I was worried about, we talked about the record-breaking lows of reefer. Well, we finally dropped below 3%, and it happened pretty rapidly here these last few days of April. That brought us down to 2.73%. Sure, rejection rates had come down, here right above 3, but these, it peaked back up.
I was going to say, it was starting to pick back up right around the middle of the month, and it got to the last 4 days of the month, it just dropped basically off a cliff. It looks like it's off a cliff. In reality, it's a fairly sizable drop. 80 basis points?
Yeah.
But we don't talk about 80 basis points moves normally as big.
But we're also in that area where, you
can't drop much lower.
You can't drop much lower. So 80 does actually mean, could mean a lot. If we're at 31% and it dropped down to 30.2%, no, we wouldn't even care.
Yeah.
So valid point. But this is an all-time new record low that we're at for reefer. And it just shows where they are taking every load they can.
Yeah.
Volumes are down as well. But, hopefully we'll see some of this pick back up during May. But we may see some a little bit more spot market activity start to pick up during May, because we're going to start into the beginning of that peak, what we're going to call the peak season of produce. It's still the peak season. It's not going to peak very well this year, but it's the beginning of the peak season. So maybe we'll have some volumes roll over to the spot market and help out there.
Yeah, we definitely need to.
Let's go over to the next chart here. So changes in rejection rates, and this is something that's kind of important to stay in tune with. Memphis is changing. Houston is changing, and then Memphis is changing. Chattanooga's on here as well. And these are the markets that you may want to pay attention. Do you have lanes to these markets? If you have to maybe accept more into Memphis, maybe you can use Memphis back as a backhaul.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is the markets we talk about all the time, that poultry belt there in the Midwest. Poultry is a lot more regular and normal, things like that, right? It's likely under contract, right? As opposed to produce that's irregular because you don't know when exactly it's going to harvest, things like that. There's some leeway there. And what's interesting is you're seeing rejection rates just plummet up there.
These were the highest rejection rates in the country. So they actually had room to move. Go to the next chart. We'll show you here right quick. But what you just said, we used to see a blue belt all the way up through here, and a pretty dark blue. And now we're getting some lighter blues, some grays in here as rejection rates deteriorate. But there's still some strong spots here, starting down in Oklahoma, Iowa, Nebraska, Omaha there. There's still some areas that's a little bit tight capacity, but again, these are areas you want to get into. This is probably a lot more steady freight, contracted freight from there. But yes, and then maybe check your backhauls going back. Do you want to Omaha to maybe Memphis and maybe get a better backhaul rate, Memphis back to Omaha, than you would if you went to Indianapolis or Chicago?
Yeah, and that's what's so important, pulling it up and looking at various maps to make sure you have the correct, all the information possible to make those decisions when you're going in and deciding whether to accept a load or reject it. So, Donnie, thank you so much for this update. We'll be sure to check in with you again a little later. Right now, hand it back over to Kaylee Nix.